And I'm giggling because I've just had a bit of a tech nightmare, and I was just calling myself, I'm confessing that I'm an idiot. And of course, my beautiful guest has said, hang on a minute. Julie, welcome.
Hello there. It's so great to be here finally. These things happen. I mean, tech's just great when it supports us, but sometimes it's just very testing when we're trying to do the work that we do, isn't it?
For
So,
sure.
hey, I've got plenty of time and I'm just delighted to be here. So
Awesome. Just as well.
yeah.
So let's talk about your happiness circle, because happiness is, I've been really quite unhappy for a very long time in my life. And it's only been like the last probably 3 or 4 years where I've actually been able to be awake enough to know that I'm happy. That sounds completely ridiculous.
No, it doesn't. No.
All of those limiting beliefs. Tell me about your happiness circles. I'm fascinated by what it is that you get up to.
Yeah, so excited to talk about it. I'm so passionate about it. Happiness is my passion, and I can chat to that at any time. But I think I relate to a lot of what you say and to the women that I work with. That I also grew up with a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of negative thinking. And I really struggled well into my 20s, even into my 30s, of just having a lots of negative thoughts, not being good enough, and a lot of my happiness based on external things. I mean, a lot of us are brought up that way, aren't we? That, if you have money, if you have the house, you have the job, you'll be happy. And a lot of what we're told is that externally things will make us happy. And when we grow up with any kind of level of limiting beliefs or negative thinking, which we all have, to some degree, we often seek validation externally. And so I'm really passionate about happiness in the sense that I do believe that so much of our happiness is within our control, and that the research backs up so much of that. And I'm very much about living an intentionally happy life. And what that means is that you're very conscious of what it is you want to do and the things you need to do every day to take you forwards in that life. We are all so incredibly busy. And I know all the people that are joining us today, we're super busy. We're running businesses, we're coaching others, we're pouring into other people. There's so many demands. And even in 2020, when this is being recorded, what a year it's been. We're still super busy. There's so much going on. Yet here we are going, wow, it's the end of November. It's nearly Christmas. What happened, And life goes by so much, so quickly. And I'm all about teaching you to slow down, to focus on what's truly important and how to get there. And this is what the Intentional Happiness Circle is all about. It's a step-by-step program to take you through the steps that I use and I want to teach you. All incredibly simple, but it's about slowing down, creating that space to really focus on what is it that I want? What is it that makes me happy? What brings me joy? What's important to me? What's in alignment with my values? What are my personal and professional goals? And really focusing on them and prioritize. And what I say is really elevating those, because I think we often try and squeeze things into our lives, squeeze things in every day. I want to exercise. I'll try and squeeze it in somewhere. And that squeezing in doesn't work. Instead, let go of some of the things that are not serving us anymore or we don't need to do, and elevate the things that are actually important. And that's what the Intentional Happiness Circle is all about.
I love that you're saying that every day, because it is an everyday, it's like a ritual, isn't it? It's an everyday activity well, it definitely, I'm going to speak for myself, I have to keep happy, to stay happy, I have to work at it every day consciously. If I go into the unconscious and just slip back into old patterns of behavior, of thinking, that's when I actually start to get anxious, depressed. How does it show up for the people that reach out for you? How do they know they're unhappy?
I think most people show up because they're just not where they thought they would be. So I get a lot of people coming and saying, like, hey, yeah, well, sometimes I get, hey, I'm 27 and life's not where I thought it'd be. And I'm like, hey, don't panic. It's going to be okay. You've got ages. But I get a lot of women in their 30s and their 40s. And it's like, life's okay, but it's not amazing. And I'm so much about, obviously, like, don't settle for fine, go for amazing. If he wants to go, life's fine. It's fine. Really, that's what we're settling for. It's that sense that it's okay, but you're just, there's not, everything in life just isn't like a 10, it's all like a 3 or a 4 or a 5, like, you've got a relationship, maybe you've got a nice house, but it could be, it's not quite where you want to live, or a lot of time people are doing jobs that don't bring them joy. We've often ended up in a career or a workplace that you thought would be the right place, but actually isn't quite in alignment. It's this sort of feeling of like nothing feels quite aligned. And also I get a lot of people who they know that their thinking is holding them back. So they come to me and they know that they feel stuck. They know that they're not pushing forwards because there's thoughts in their heads that are keeping them from achieving more. So I think a lot of people know that they could have more, but they have no idea how that could be different, or sometimes even believing that they could have that life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It's just talking about my own personal experience in terms of waking up and realizing that I have a choice to be happy, or I have a choice to, I always say I have a choice as to what reality I want to live in. Do I want to live in the reality of being depressed and suffering with anxiety, because that's predominantly the state I've been for most of my life, or do I want to play in the reality of where I am now, being happy, living this extraordinary life? So it's fascinating when you suddenly you wake up and it's like, it's only taken me 50 freaking years to figure it out, but at least I figured it out.
But you figured it out. Yeah.
That bit of, wow, I've actually got a choice. How does this tie into what we're seeing now with this mass global anxiety, the survival? I think what I'm getting to is, people are very much moving into a space of survival and fear rather than thriving and abundance. This space that people, and it seems to be either people they're either leaning further into survival or further into consciousness and abundance.
Yeah, absolutely. We never knew it was going to unfold like this year, did we? You think back to February, March, and no one expected it to evolve this way. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the kind of climate that we're living in, and that even though that is going on, life still continues, doesn't it? And so all the day-to-day stressors are there, the issues that go on, life continues. So we're already dealing with a lot. And then there's this other layer of stuff that often feels frightening and very much out of our control. There's only so much that we can do to control what's going on out there. We can't control the actions of other people, decisions that are made. It's a very frightening place to be. And so I think what's really important right now is I always talk about, like, there's so many, gosh, it's so many. I'll try and like rein it in. But first and foremost, like, it's okay not to be okay sometimes. I think that's so important. Let me just clarify here that I call myself a happiness evangelist. I'm passionate about that. I believe there's stuff in your control, but I am not happy every minute of every day. And that's okay. I am a human being. The goal is not to be in a happiness bubble and nothing ever happens. It's about, for me, it's about having the resilience and the tools to cope with what life throws at me, and that's the difference. So let's just be clear on that. And therefore it's okay to have days where you don't feel okay, where you feel overwhelmed, where you feel that it's scary. It's fine. It's okay to do that. And I think for many people where there already was some anxiety and stress around, this has really exacerbated that. So I think you're right. We go into a stress response. It's really what we're in, isn't it? You're in a stress response where really you get ready to fight, or you get to, to run away. Or for many of us, we actually freeze. That's another response in the stress response. So like just freezing and just being quite paralyzed by stuff. So recognizing how do you respond to stress? Recognizing that you're living with a persistent and constant level of stress, because this is not just something that happened and disappeared. This is something that's going to be around for a while, and it actually kind of worsened for a while. You know, it's really unpredictable. So recognizing how you respond to that, but then also saying, well, what can I control? Because there is so much within your control. You use the word choice, and, you know, with all due respect to limitations that are around for people, situations and circumstances, even within whatever your situation is, there's always something that you can control and something that you can choose to do. And so, you know, even like today, I run a happiness club every week. This week, we're talking about creating a wellness plan, a lockdown wellness plan. It's like, what can you consciously work on that you can be in control of so that you can continue to move forwards and not feel like things are in limbo just now? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What a great idea.
Yeah, I think we have to like find ways. Like, I think it's about being adaptive, and sometimes people are we can be quite rigid, and things go along nicely when, you know, things are just the same.
Yeah.
And what we've had to learn to adapt here is to be more adaptive, to have a more of a growth mindset, and to be more flexible, and to kind of have control, but also kind of roll those waves as well. And that's hard for people. That's challenging, and it's often very uncomfortable. But we have to adapt to what's coming to us every week at the moment. Things change constantly.
I love what you just said there about a growth mindset. So for people who don't understand, who have no knowledge around or haven't heard of it before, or have heard of it and are not too sure about it, my partner's never heard of it, which I was quite surprised about. The difference between having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Yeah. So if we have a fixed mindset, I mean, what it will really manifest in yourself is that you feel like this is who I am as a person, and that this, you know, this is how I will be, and that we are fixed, you know, like this is me. I'm an anxious person. I'm a depressed person. This is just me in my life and how I am, believing that there's not so many things that you can change, that this is life, and you go more in a reactionary path. You react to the things that happen, where a growth mindset is believing that we're on this more continual journey. And that's what you're describing in your personal life and in mine, you know, that we're on a journey and we're continually growing, we're continually learning, we're continually evolving as human beings. You know, you and I as coaches, we're not like, you know, we've done all the work and we're like, oh, I can sit back now. That's life sorted. If only. Yeah. It's like, gosh, here's another thing coming up I've got to deal with, isn't it? And that's important. Like, let's be clear. We're not sitting back and going, well, I've got life sorted out, you know, like if only. But we've got a pretty good handle on stuff, and we can take all that learning that we've done and we can condense that into programs and ways of supporting people to get there faster. That's what we do. We just took longer to get there, you know. So we have this growth mindset that, you know, we're continually growing and evolving, that we can train our minds, that our brains are not fixed either. And this is really important. The science tells us that we're not fixed. Not just me going like, you can be different, you can change. But like neuroscience tells us, we can create strong neural pathways. We can strengthen and make them really dense. We can create positive neural pathways. We can train our brains and then fix them in a positive way. Yep. And I always share science, because science is amazing, because it tells you it's not just you, but, you know, there's stuff that you can do that actually gives you long-lasting change. So I really encourage people to really look at being more open, to have a look at growth mindset. Carol Dweck writes a really great book about mindset, which is all about the growth mindset. You know, look into some of that stuff, because when we open up our minds that nothing is fixed and everything's open for possibility, it's such a freeing place to be. When you resist that, it's a harder place to be, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that. I used to have such a fixed mindset. It was either right or it was wrong. It was either left or it was right. There was no in the middle. It was either yes or no. That caused a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of energy. Oh my God, so much energy.
So much energy. And headspace as well, huh? Headspace as well.
God. And do you know what? I don't think I was a very nice person either doing that. So now when I feel it sneaking in, I'm like, how do I get into the middle? How can I crawl back into the middle? I need to get into the middle, because then I have a choice. And I can look at things differently, but I'm always like, how can I stay in the middle? Because that's when I'm consciously awake. That's where I can make an informed decision, and it's my choice. Either whether I go right or left is neither here nor there, but in that moment it's like,
of course,
how can I get back into the middle?
And that's such an important point, like if I can pick up on that, because like the work I do, when I really, my whole work is working on negative mindset and limiting beliefs. I love getting right into someone's head because I totally get it. I've been there, I've lived it. So I can really, I feel like I can empathize, and I can be very compassionate towards that, and I get it. So often people are like, gosh, she's totally in my head. I can freak people out sometimes, or like, oh, but that's a wonderful place to be. But my passion is to help people get out of that, because you don't need to live like that. Because what you describe is like suffering, like that was a tough place to be, and it is a tough place. But one of the things that I really want people to do is to get that space, it's becoming consciously aware. And that's why I keep talking about being intentional and consciously doing things, is that most of that stuff is so automatic. Those thoughts come in like this in seconds. And before you know it, your brain's gone down this pathway, and you've gone down this path that's just negative, isn't it? And like with seconds, you can go from some tiny little circumstance, some little incident, and you're way off, and you've come to like, I'm not good enough in like a split second, and you're like, how did you get there? But your brain does that so fast. And what I start with, and I would say this as a starting point for everyone, is like, you've got to become aware of the language in your head and create that space. It's like, I would say, just like stop. It's like press and stop, pause on a video, stop. Okay, what am I thinking? And what path am I going to choose to go down here? Am I going to go down this rabbit hole of negativity, or I'm going to choose to process these thoughts and try and come in a more positive way? And so this is so important, like to become more conscious of what's in our heads, know that we can change it, and just be a bit more present about it and slow it down and just go like, okay. I always say like cultivate curiosity. That's what I try and do with myself, when you find yourself like really irritable or something, and I'm like, okay, Julie, like what's going on? What is really annoying you? What's going on in your head today? And then like, okay, once you do that, often it kind of dissipates, or you can head off that. And then I'm not saying like, oh, just be positive. Like sometimes you have to process those negative thoughts or those emotions. So allow yourself the space to process it, or recognize that it's an unhealthy negative thought that's probably not even true. And how can we change that and be more positive? So you're absolutely spot on. I love that, kind of coming back to middle is a great way of saying that. But how can I just like recenter, pause, and go like, okay, what's going on here?
I had it this morning while you were all in bed, probably. Something just snuck in, and I was like, oh my God, where on earth is that coming from? And I've had to trace it all the way back, and it's all the same stuff that I always get tripped over by. But if I catch it, then I can do something about it, and I can acknowledge it, and I can stop my thinking, which I'm so grateful that I've learned how to do now.
And that's really important, isn't it? That there are tools and techniques that are highly effective. They're not particularly difficult to use. They just need that consistent practice. It's just knowing that they will work, believing it's the right thing for you to do, and then consistently doing it till it becomes a habit that actually it's very little time. And so let's address that, because most people feel like they're super busy and there's time. How am I going to fit in another, meditation, journaling, gratitude, how do I fit it all in? Well, one, you become intentional about it because it's important, but two, like most of the techniques I teach to people, they take 2, 3, maximum 5 minutes. So I'm like, you have 160 hours in the week. And if I say to you 35 minutes out of 160 hours will really effectively change how you feel, it's worth giving it a shot, isn't it? It really is.
Well, it's not only that, but once you have moved through that and you have different beliefs, it's also what it gives you back. It's almost unquantifiable because it gives you back so many other things that I'm not describing it very well.
You are. I know what you're saying. I love this. Like please, sorry, continue.
It's not money. It's a new sense of being, which is freeing. It does give you more time. It will, if you run a business, you will be able to make more money in your business because you've stepped into clearing out energetically what it is that's been holding you back. There are so many benefits on so many different levels. Yeah. It's really difficult to quantify actually what all the benefits are when you only have
really hard to translate
5 minutes. It's like a no-brainer. Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
It's like, if I could give the example, I worked for over 20 years in Scotland in mental health services. I worked in the voluntary sector, and I had the real pleasure of actually going into different women's homes and forming a relationship and working with them. And most of the women I worked with were on a huge spectrum. I worked with a lot of trauma, lots of every aspect of mental health, lots of anxiety, stress, imposter syndrome, everything. And a lot of the time services would refer them to us and they would go like, they're fine, they're fine. And I would go in and there would be a woman sitting there anxious, depressed, stressed, no self-esteem, who was existing but not living. And so in terms of like the sort of psychological services, they were fine because they weren't accessing those, they weren't chronic enough to be in there. But they were far from living. And this is what's driven me, is that, and what you're describing is like, these tools will help you reduce that negative thinking, those limiting beliefs, and really reduce a lot of that anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome. So we're going to really be able to reduce so much of the symptoms. But then it takes you this other step over. And that's what I was about. Not only do we lessen those symptoms, but I want to get you to a real quality of life. Like, what's the life you want to lead? Not just like, oh, you're not as depressed. That's not good enough. And so what you're describing, if I hear correctly, is that we can do a lot to really affect how we feel. But then what it opens up is it brings much more abundance into our lives. It allows you to go forwards. It allows you to be the best version of yourself, to access, all the opportunities that you didn't think you could have. When you clear that stuff, you attract so much more and you free up a lot of stuff, a lot of that headspace and energy that gets drained from managing all that negativity. You can focus in the energy, and it's so freeing. And so, it not only just reduces a lot of stuff, but it also then brings so much.
Yeah, it's
I got all excited there, sorry. I know. I'm like, I got all excited. I could talk for hours. I get so passionate. I just feel so strongly. It's what drives me after 30 years of doing this. I've been doing this my whole life. There's so much that we can do, and you do not have to settle for anything less than amazing. Like really you can create, because also what I find is that when I ask people what it is they want, it was completely realistic. When you ask people what they want, it's all realistic and within your grasp. No one's asking for anything out of this world. It's all, what people said to me was, I want to be happy. That's what really drove me to do what I do. They said, I want to be happy. When you broke that down, there was nothing that was unattainable, it was all very realistic stuff. So it's entirely possible to go for that. Get rid of the stuff that holds you back and go for the stuff that you really want.
Yeah, and I love that this has come full circle. This conversation has really come full circle and has come back into the happiness circle, because the happiness part is the golden nugget, really. That's the golden nugget that feeds into everything else. And you can't buy happiness. It is something definitely that is internal.
There's definitely of course we need some of those extrinsic goals, and no one's saying, don't go for money, don't go for the material things, of course, and there's nothing wrong with doing what you do and having a good life out of that. We all want to be comfortable, but the research shows us that, you know, your level of income and your happiness, they don't keep going. So if you have a billion, it's not like you're like a billionaire of happiness. You know, there's actually a level where it levels at around $75,000. It's not even like, it's a decent amount, but it's not, that's where it kind of levels out. And like, you know, money goes up, but happiness doesn't go the same way. It begins to plateau. So, you know, when you align it with external goals, external measurements, it will get you to a degree. Of course, we all want that. We all want to be comfortable and not worry about money and have money and stuff. But you've also got to pair it with the intrinsic goals, the stuff in ourselves. And that's what we started off at the beginning, wasn't it? A lot of where we were at was like, when I base my happiness on external things, then you're just going to roller coaster with emotion because it's all dependent on other people. But when you can really build that inner core, like you kept talking about coming to the middle, it's all about the center, it's about being here. And most of the time when I asked people what happiness meant, they said, I want to feel calm, I want to feel balanced. People say, I want to have peace of mind. You know, like that to me, calm and balanced feeling and resilient is what happiness is. So you've got to balance it up. You've got to have the intrinsic goals about that self-growth, that growth mindset, plus those external ones. And when you do both of those together, that's where you really get this feeling of happiness.
Yeah, and this is a conversation for another time, but as you said that, unmet needs suddenly came in and went, ooh, unmet needs. It just stuck its head in there. It's quite a big conversation, even that one, but it's all, there's many layers that are
it's very big. And so like, I really think, you know, everybody needs to have a space. This is a really good time for us to reflect as we come to the end of this year, like to really pause and reflect, whether you can do that yourself, whether you're in a group like yours, Wendy, or you find someone like me, you know, like a coach, someone where you can just create some space to pause and reflect and decide how you want the next year to be. You know, there's a lot of great posts on Facebook about like, you know, going back to what kind of busy. Actually, a lot of things that we felt we missed so much from the old life, whatever that was. Actually, most people are now realizing, I don't actually miss a lot of that stuff. There's some things, of course, and the things that you do miss, you realize those are the things that are important. The meeting of friends, the socializing, the connection, you know, those are the things that we're seeing as important. But a lot of the stuff we thought actually was the good stuff, we're realizing actually didn't bring us the same joy. And now we have an opportunity to really review what it is that brings us joy in our lives and what we want to take forward in the next year. And as you say, you've got that choice to do that.
Yeah, brilliant. So talking about how people can reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, well, of course, have the website, julieleonardcoaching.com. We'd love for you to come over there, and you'll see a lot of stuff about the happiness circle if you'd like to join the intentional happiness circle with me. That will open again for January, so we can kick off the year with intention. And also I have a lovely Facebook group called the Happiness Club. I would love to invite you into that. It's free. And then every week you have live access to me. I run the Happiness Club. Women from all around the world come together and we talk about aspects of happiness. So I would really love to invite you into that and join me as we explore how to be happy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, who's not going to want that? Who doesn't want more happiness?
We can always keep working. As you say, like it's always, I mean, I love that you said that earlier about, you know, it's something you've got to keep working on. If you don't, you slip back. To me, it's the same as exercise or your physical health. You don't just go, I'll go out and run a marathon. You train for it, and then you don't run a marathon and go, well, that's me done till next year. You know, like it's something that we are continually working on. And you notice if you don't keep doing the things that are good for you, you know, you lose them and you slip back. So we've got to constantly keep working on ourselves.
Absolutely. Happiness is definitely a work in process for me, for sure.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us today.
You're most welcome. I really loved our conversation. It was really nice.
Take care, everybody. Until next time.